The poem Canonization was written by the metaphysical poet John Donne. It was first published in 1633. The poem speaks about the complexities involved with the notions of romantic love. Let us move on to the poem. For God's sake, hold your tongue and let me love. In the name of God, I am asking you to stop disturbing me because I am loving my beloved here. The speaker is asking the imaginary critic to stop his criticism and demands that he be left alone to love. Or chide my palsy or my gout, my 5 grey hairs or ruined fortune flout. Don't talk about the way I love. You can talk about my paralysis, my arthritic condition, the way my hair is turning grey, or even mock at my ruined fortune. The speaker gives the imaginary critic topic for discussion or criticism rather than criticizing the way he loves. With wealth your state, your mind with arts improve. Take you a course, get you a place, observe his honor or his grace, or the king's real or a stamped face, contemplate what you will, approve, so you will let me love. Why waste your time criticizing my love? When you can improve your financial state, improve your mindset by practicing arts, improve your societal status by attending a new course and graduating in it, or even you may develop an acquaintance with the king. Either way, you will let me continue my love. The speaker is further giving suggestions on how the imaginary critic can utilize his time effectively rather than waste it by criticizing his love. Alas, alas, who's injured by my love? What merchant ship have my sighs drowned? Who says my tears have overflowed his ground? When did my coals a forward spring remove? Alas, alas, who do you think is injured by my love? Have any of the ships sunk due to my sighs? Have my tears caused flood to someone? Have my cold removed a bright spring season that was yet to come? The speaker is now expanding a scope of criticism that was earlier centered on the imaginary critic to the nature around him. When did the heats which my veins fill add one more to the plaguey bill? Soldiers find wars, and lawyers find out still litigious men, which quarrels move, though she and I do love? When has the heat that was in my body given plague to someone? Soldiers have wars to attend to, and lawyers have litigious men. Has someone at least quarrelled with one another just because she and I are loving each other? The speaker is now vehemently questioning the imaginary critic to point out what natural state of affair has been disrupted due to they loving each other. Call us what you will, we are made such by love. Call her one, me another fly. We are tapers too, and at our own cost die. And we in us find the eagle and the dove. The phoenix riddle hath more wit by us. We two being one are it. So, to one neutral thing both sexes fit. We die and rise the same, and prove mysterious by this love. Call us whatever you want, we don't care. You can even call us a fly, which we still don't care. We are like candles, we die at our own cost. You may call us a fly, but we find the mighty eagle and the gentle dove in us. The phoenix riddle has more semblance to us. Our love has made us a single phoenix, irrespective of a gender. We will die and resurrect from the ashes. You may find our love to be mysterious. The speaker is now raising his arguments with the imaginary critic to a higher level of metaphorics. He is comparing his love to odd metaphors like the fly, the candle, the eagle, the dove, and the phoenix. We can die by it if not live by love. And if unfit for tombs and hearse our legend be, it will be fit for verse. And if no piece of chronicle we prove, we'll build in sonnets pretty rooms, the greatest ashes as half-acre tombs, and by these hymns all shall approve us canonized for love. We can live by our love or die by it. It does not matter because we are truly in love. If our love story is unfit for a tomb or a hearse, then it will be fit for a poem. We will write a sonnet for ourselves and it will be way better than a half-acre tomb. The sonnets we write would become hymns and people would worship us and consider us canonized for love. The speaker is now attempting to prove the divinity of their love. By using terms like canonization, the speaker wishes to consider himself and his lover as the saints of love. And thus invoke us, you whom reverent love made one another's hermitage, you to whom lovers peace that now is rage, who did the whole world's soul contract and drove into the glasses of your eyes, so made such mirrors and such spies that they did all to you epitomize. Countries, towns, courts, beg from above a pattern of your love. And when we become saints, people will start praying to us. Their prayers would be, you who have become love saints because of your pure love, help us. For you, love was a symbol of peace, but here on earth love is a symbol of rage. We now pray to you at your shrine. You can clearly see the whole world through the lens of your eyes, and this sense the problematic condition that we are undergoing. Therefore, us from different countries, towns, and courts pray to you to bestow upon us the ways of your love. The speaker has declared himself as canonized. The last stanza is more like a soliloquy. He is addressing himself. The speaker fancies an imaginary scene where people are praying to them for their blessing to love the world as they loved. That's it, guys. You were listening to the summary of John Donne's beautiful poem, Canonization. Thank you.